Biff, have you ever heard my joke about the bat pole vaulter?
I have not heard your joke about the bad pole vulture. What is your joke about the bad
You
pole
know,
vulture?
I'm not going to even tell it. It never goes over well. It doesn't go over well. You know, Biff, if I had 50 cents for every math test I failed in high school, I'd have $6.30.
Where do you come up with these jokes? I mean, is it like, do you actually try to build these jokes or whatever? I don't want to know, actually. I don't want to know. I didn't ask anything. Let's just move on.
Hello, everybody. This is Jacques.
This is Biff.
And welcome back. We had a nice almost month hiatus. I have
nice for all the so-called listeners.
But about half of them we cover on the text thread we have.
But they don't have to listen. Well, they have to listen to me when I show up at Friday Night Hockey, but they don't have to listen to you. So.
You see, something I don't know. Oh, I know it. So my little guy sitting next to me yesterday, and he's tying his shoe, sitting on the chair, and I'm like, "Hey, let me see your shoe for a second." He hands it to me, and I throw it across the room. And of course, his mother just looks at him like, "What are you doing? You know your father's going to do that." And it made me think, I wonder how many people at F&H, because you might have seen people go out onto the ice to get their sticks, but how many times, the opening face-off of F&H, or there'd be a new guy on the bench, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, is that the new Titan? Can I see that?" And then as soon as they hand me the stick, I throw it on the ice to the other side of the rink. And I don't know why I do that. I think I do it for an audience.
I think we all know why you do that, because you're a jerk. I mean, and I don't know why I do that.
And it's funny because some of the people who I've gotten are really smart people who know me. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then I giggle like a schoolgirl. Anyways, enough of that F&H talk. How has F&H been real quick?
I missed it last week, but it's been fine. I mean, we get down, we play. We don't play as long as we used to because people are still kind of getting back into whatever pre-COVID shape and so on. But yeah, it's been good.
So next week
we kind of back. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we're close to our previous ice slots, so
nice.
It's kind of later in the evening, and so I think it's kind of made things easier for a lot of people also. So it's cool. Yeah.
Next week we will be doing a belated Richard Donner side show. Man, what a career that guy had! What a career that guy had!
Yeah, if I only knew who the hell you were talking about, I could weigh in on how great he was.
Well, you know what? I'll just give you a little bit. The Omen, Superman, The Toy, Goonies, the Lethal Weapon franchise, Scrooged. I mean, this is a guy who, the Omen, 1976. I mean, that pretty much was the template for horror movies going forward. Superman was basically, the tagline, "You will believe a man can fly." And in 1978, I mean, that was so groundbreaking that it did. It paved the way for, Batman a few years later. Well, after Superman 2,
yeah.
The Batman franchise and on from there. But
Batman. I think Batman's a different animal, right? Because
but this is the first time they say, you know what? If we put real money behind a superhero movie, we think
that's legit. That's legit.
They created a genre.
Let's talk about that later.
Yeah,
as it is, I'm not going to know what to talk about. So here we go.
Okay. But seriously, it's been so much since we've even caught up. I'd ask if you miss me, but we know that's a rhetorical question. Have I brought you being the listener up to speed on the new rescue dog Valkyrie?
How many eyes?
2 eyes. She has
How
2
many legs? How many legs?
3-legged pit bull.
Okay.
And
cool.
we lost the love of my life 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. My dog Loki, we lost. And
I'm sure your family will be happy to hear that statement. It's a good thing they don't listen.
Oh no, there's Biff, you know me. There's complete transparency. But at the same time, I know it works the other way. On a good day, if Duran Duran isn't in the news, I make my wife's top five. But otherwise, I know the pecking order. No, but we had this dog Loki, 14 years, love of my life. I wasn't ready to replace him. In that time, we've rescued 50 other dogs have come and gone, and we've really been lucky with some of the wonderful dogs that we've had and found them great homes. We were fostering this was supposed to be a foster, and it took about 24 hours for me to say, yeah, we're keeping her. And
a foster fail, it's your fault. That's actually cool. That's cool.
Yeah. And in honor of Loki, I wanted to keep it in that Asgardian family. And so I thought Lady Sif, who's part of the Warrior 3, a good friend of Thor's, and if you saw either Endgame or you saw Ragnarok, Valkyrie was a big character in those movies. So we went with Valkyrie.
What's her name? What was her name? Michelle, the actress's name. I mean, she's been on other great stuff.
She did Men in Black with Chris.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, so she's fantastic in that.
And I think she's in Love and Thunder coming up. Actually, I heard there might be a spoiler that Valkyrie and Lady Sif might become an item in the new Thor Love and Thunder. So that'd be great.
Yeah. And you didn't want to use Jane Foster.
No. Come
on.
That's
come on.
That's too easy.
Foster.
That's too plain.
That's awesome. Then just because you have to refer to her with her full name. Every time you call Jane Foster, you have to say it with a goofy accent. Jane Foster.
So over the pandemic, so one of the cool things I've done since we've chatted is over the pandemic, I saw this documentary about this drive-in theater in Western Pennsylvania called the Mahoning Drive In. It's been around since 1949. The documentary is great. Long story short, about 5 years ago, the owner since the 70s had a legit problem where all the movies are now delivered digitally to theaters.
Right.
And he needed like $25,000 to get a new digital projector, which he just didn't have. He did a GoFundMe, a Kickstarter type thing, couldn't come up with the funds. And basically it looked like that year was going to be the last year of the drive-in. Some young kid who just, called Kismet, just happened to be driving by, saw the signs, goes, oh, I didn't know there's drive-in there. Drove over to check it out. It was like when the guy was first opening it, getting it ready for the season, gave the kid a little tour, talked to him for a while, told him, if you like drive-ins, you better come this year because we're not going to have drive-in next year. And the kid basically said, yes, you are, and convinced the guy to go retro. Instead of trying to compete with movie theaters, keep with the 35 millimeter. You can get old movies, and they do these little festivals. Like a couple of weeks ago, they had a Thanksgiving weekend where it was old Tom Hanks movies. And we've been waiting for it. They show a lot of horror, a lot of George Romero stuff, which is great. It draws an audience, a lot of cosplaying involved. We went down over the 4th of July weekend because we took the 3 dogs. We have a rescue dog, the dog we just adopted, and our other dog, Maru. The 2 boys and I, the wife and I took 2 cars because you can camp there. That's one of the cool things. They have a whole camping area.
Yep.
It's wonderful. And so we went down for a Karate Kid triple feature. Not a double feature, a triple feature.
So it's with the one with what's her face in?
No, that was the 4th one. That came years later, but there was actually a 3rd Karate Kid with Pat Marino and Ralph Macchio there.
Okay. Don't remember it. I only know the first 2.
And there's a reason. So since we've come home,
Grease 3?
Since they've come home, my little guy was so all up into it. And now he's powering. We're powering through. The wife saw season 1. I saw season 1 and 2, but obviously we haven't got to season 3. But for him to sit and watch 6 episodes and be upset because we had to go to bed without flinching a muscle of Cobra Kai, all dialed in, like loves Cobra Kai, one of Joe's favorite TV shows in the last few years. And it's great. It takes place in real time, 35 years later. You're like, let's check in on them. And it's fantastic. So I tell you that not just because, hey, I went on this little trip, let me tell you about it. I wanted to see it. We're so glad we went down there. And then this past Monday, I get a text messages from a bunch of people. They'd say, have you heard about the theater? Have you heard about the theater? Unbeknownst to the theater, the people who own the land, the family that owns the land, that they've been renting from for decades, optioned the land to a solar power company to turn it into a solar farm. But so there was this big outpouring, on their social media saying, hey, there's going to be a hearing, a zoning hearing. Here's the company, write them letters, call them. Here's the zoning commissioner's name and office, call them, send letters, tell them how much it means to the community, how much it means to you, and they said like, hey, people, because in the documentary, one of the guys who works at the theater comes in from Dover, New Hampshire, which is even 20 minutes. Yeah. Which is 20 minutes further away from us. Gets there, leaves Thursday morning, and comes home Monday morning. And it doesn't make any money, but it's his passion. He's a film geek. He wants to keep it going. So that's the outpouring. And I'd say, we spent money in the community while we were down there, and hey, it brings money into the community. Biff, there's not much of a community. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere. And, that's one of my things. So Biff, I may or may not have done the following. I may or may not have called the company. I may or may not have been switched around 15 times. Okay. I may not have finally been given a gentleman's name and cell phone because he is in Los Angeles right now as the person in public relations I would want to talk to. And maybe I did, maybe I didn't call this gentleman and let him know, hey, I left a voicemail saying, hey, my name is Jacques. I'm a producer with the John Oliver Show, and we'd love to do a story with you about big solar coming in and crushing the hopes and dreams of this cult little fan following for this theater in Pennsylvania. We have openings 3 times next week. Whatever works for you, please call me back and we can line up a time. About 4 hours later, my wife sends me a Facebook page saying that the solar company was not aware of the impact on the film community and how special this historical drama was, and they're now looking for other. Was it me and my phone call? Probably not. Am I saying?
Oh, no. There was no phone call.
Am I saying right? I might not have made it. Am I saying had that phone call happened, would that have made me a hero? I'm not saying that. I'm also not saying that. So no, but
I'm just saying that, if there was somebody who made such a call, man, that person may have really changed the course of this company's actions. So, I mean,
but dude, literally, I mean, when I'm saying, and I think I sent you some pictures. I mean, it's beautiful. It's up in the hills.
Yeah, it's a cool concept, right? I mean, it's old school, right? The whole thing is great.
It's beautiful. There's nothing up there. I mean, when we woke up in the morning, you're up in the mountains. It's like and the clouds. You could if I had a halfway decent baseball arm, if I was our friend Rick, you could hit the cloud with a pitch. So it's beautiful. But in the 330 miles there and back, there's a lot of empty space you can put a solar farm. You don't have to take the 72-year-old theater. So. But so speaking of, I was looking from our podcast a few weeks back, the movie list. Have you seen any of the movies on the list that we had talked about since our last podcast?
I'm going to go see Demon Slayer probably this weekend with my son on our TV because it's now moved to Amazon Prime.
Oh,
so nice. I do want to try to go see Black Widow though, but I don't know if my family will be up for it. So I think that's definitely one that I do want to see. Yeah, it's a Marvel movie. You want to see those in the theaters, right?
You do.
So, yeah. Other than that, I don't know if I've seen anything that's out that I kind of want to see the Fast and Furious, right? Because another movie, if I'm going to see it, probably go in the theater, but we'll see. I'll see if I care enough. It seems, that franchise seems to do a pretty nice. It's just eye candy, right?
Oh, that's all it.
Right? They seem to really do a good job on it.
I saw a funny tweet. It's like, I saw Fast and Furious 9, 460 car crashes, 0 airbags. And it's like, but again, I always harken back to, look, if you went and you saw a Transformer movie, you see a Godzilla movie, and you're walking out feeling cheated because of the plot holes and the improbability or the,
You mean like how helicopters can possibly lift a Jaeger, like stuff like that?
right, exactly, yeah.
Right.
It's like so you have to turn that shit off. I saw Black Widow with the family. It was the first time in a theater since the
Right. Yeah.
since we didn't run to the theater just before they shut them down, so it might have been a couple months before that. But yeah, it's been a year and a half. It was weird. I mean, it was nice that you could pick your seats, and it was one of those spread out theaters. So basically,
Right.
it's just the four of us in the row. So that
Yeah. So they're basically like limiting which seats you could like. Basically, they're only opening up certain seats. Is that what it is?
Oh no, it was full thing. But we went like Friday at like 4:30 because she doesn't work on Fridays.
Right.
Before the big Friday night crowd. So you had that. So that was one on the list. I saw the movie and I had it as a drive-in movie, but we ended up watching it at home on Disney. The movie Luca, the animated movie, very 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 sweet. But I had already saw when we recorded Army of the Dead. You haven't seen Army of the Dead yet, huh?
I have not. That's with Bautista. Is that right?
Yeah. It's Zack Snyder. Takes place in Vegas. Again, another one of those, dude. Just it's eye candy. It's
no, definitely wanted to see it. I
fun
think my
take.
family may have seen it, right? Because it came out on streaming, right?
Yep. So that was good. The only other thing I haven't, really talked to you about since we haven't talked, I get this letter from the IRS 6 weeks ago saying, "Hey, we're having trouble with an ID. Like, basically, I got to confirm my identity. Here's the phone number to this call, and on the recorded message, they're like, oh, it says within 30 days on the paperwork, but if it's not 30 days, don't worry about." I call at least 4 to 5 times a day. Every single time, it's like, we're too busy. Call back. Like you got to go through the whole 2-minute and 30-second thing, and explains. It's like, and then it's like, this is paperwork you have to have in front of you. We need this and that and that. Please hold. Somebody will be right with you. And then there's that pause where you're like, oh, somebody's going to pick up. I'm sorry, we're too busy. And then I found because it's like, oh, if you're trying to do X, Y, and Z, all of this can be done on the website unless it's this code number, then you have to talk to us. But everything else, you can go and 4 times through the message, it gives you the irs.gov, identity. What? I'm like, oh my God. Then there's an advocacy group through them. It's like a nonprofit thing through them. If you're having trouble, I'm like, finally, I call that number, goes through the whole thing. And then it goes, leave a message at the beep. And then it says, your mailbox is full. Delete messages before. And I'm like, wait. And I looked, and then it made no sense to me, but then I looked at my phone. I'm like, yeah, I don't have any old messages. I don't know if it's a glitch in the system, but I'm like,
because you it probably routed you to the generic voicemail manager, and so suddenly, right? And hey, guess what? Surprise! A phone number where you can't get through to anybody has a full mailbox, inbox on the voicemail. What a shock, right?
Well, and it's like the wife and I, before he did the taxes, found out the return. It's like, okay, we got some house things we want to take care of. Let's do X, Y, and Z. Let's be smart. Let's do this and this and this. And it's just like, oh my God, it's and now it's like, and we were smart enough because this is the first time we're doing it with a house, and our taxes are more complicated now. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can probably do it now that I've seen what they did it, but we hired an outside pro and all that stuff. So that's my woes. But so we've talked about, whoever might have called this guy, Jess, over at Green Skies Clean Energy, maybe being a hero. We talked about, Richard Donner and his superhero movies. But my new favorite superheroes, Biff, are the Democrats from the state of Texas.
Oh, that went on a nice little trip.
Dude, it's like, I mean, and I saw Joe Manchin came out of a meeting saying, well, he's for this. He just wants to see them redo the bill. I mean, if they are the ones that get this bill passed, you know what I mean? It's like, and so many people that I love, like Elizabeth Warren, tweeting out and making statements like, yes, the Senate, the U.S. Senate needs to show the strength and conviction that the Democrats in Texas, and the whole thing is like,
Right.
they're being threatened with arrest, and I don't know how legit that is, but I have seen,
Right.
there was a black representative who was just arrested, by the Capitol Police because she was taking part in a black woman caucus, like, fighting for voters' rights. Same thing.
Right.
The woman down in Georgia who had the audacity to knock on the governor's door because the piece of legislation was supposed to be signed in public and it wasn't. So he was actually breaking, their state law, but she gets hauled away. So, anyways, these people from Texas who got on the plane, just absolutely amen. Weird thing for an atheist to say, but they're not wearing any capes and tights, and
Right.
of, but there are heroes among us, and maybe a hero to you. I don't know much about this, but I wouldn't be surprised if you do. Steve Wozniak is championing the right to repair movement.
Oh no, I not here. I do not know what that is. I obviously know who Wozniak is, but
basically, if you have an Apple product and it breaks, you can't fix it yourself.
Right.
It's like, even if Steve Wozniak buys a Mac and it breaks, he has to take it back to an Apple retailer for them to fix it. Otherwise, it voids a warranty.
Right. Yeah.
And it's kind of like a monopolizing of the supply chain. So, and Apple prices are high for across the board. It is what it is.
Oh, really?
But so there's this big movement that of all people that's been around for a few years, but now, he is getting behind it, like absolutely becoming like the face of it and the spokesperson for it.
Huh.
So, which I thought, spills over into the.
I mean, he made his money, right? Why not?
Right.
Why the heck not?
Dude,
He's a nice guy for the rest of his life. He made his money.
Seriously. I mean, that's money. That's money you can't spend if you try. Speaking of spending money if you can't try, I didn't put it on the rundown, but can I give a big fuck you to the 3 billionaires who are in a race to create a company for people? They're creating a company for millionaires to be able to take space joyrides. Any one of those men could solve world hunger on their own by Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, yes. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, and so it's just another thing that they can make money on, and there are people willing to pay for it. But I think that's less of a problem than the fact that we have a system where we have such wealth disparities that people. I think the most telling thing about it is that another person was able to get a slot in an upcoming flight, I think with the Amazon rocket, because another person had to cancel their $28 million ride because they had a scheduling conflict. And I'm kind of trying to get this in my mind where I paid a reservation to ride on something and it costs me $28 million and I have a schedule conflict that I can't move. Like, really? I mean, so
yeah.
So if you're at that level, I mean, that's my that's how I kind of understand. Yeah, that's I think what you call wealth disparity. I mean, I don't want to cancel like a $50 whatever, dinner or something like that. I'm gonna try to find that freaking, conflict and get it out of there so I get my $50 worth. And this guy is like saying, yeah, so for this guy, $50 is his $28 million is basically what I'm thinking.
I didn't know that, Biff, and now my life's goal is to find out what the fuck that conflict
What
was.
is that conflict?
I have to know. I don't want to know. I have to know what the.
I mean,
but literally,
is it like a date with like some, whatever celebrity or supermodel or something like that? I don't know. I mean,
I can't even like. It is unfathomable. But seriously, these billionaires are in a race to create a market. Because let's face it, for the first 10 years, it's only millionaires who are going to be able to afford these joyrides. Maybe our kids will be able to, it will be so commonplace by the time our kids are in their 40s or 50s that, oh yeah, we're going to take a ride into space. But
Yeah.
any one of those guys
Listen,
could solve world hunger by Wednesday.
I mean, I don't know if that's, if it's that simple, but still, I think it just, once again, it just speaks for the fact that the industry exists is a byproduct of the fact that we have this huge wealth disparities where there are these people that's making these stupid money that they probably don't need to be making, right? So, it is what it is.
COVID update. You guys are going back on some kind
masks, baby. The masks are back.
Dude,
tomorrow night.
That's when they go into effect. Which
11:59 p.m. tomorrow night.
Which I always love when they're like, something like that, because everywhere across the country, and they say, oh, okay, so the bars are going to be closed after this Monday. Bars were packed on Monday. Like, how many people rush to get to? Oh, I better get to the bar because I don't know when it's gonna.
I mean, yeah.
And are you? It's a Delta variant that is just out of control out there.
Well, I think that's what's going on. The R0 is up to 1.4 in LA County, which is pretty close to what it was a year ago. This time last year, I think. So, the infection rates are high. I don't know how to make of it, because obviously we're not testing as much as we did before. So I don't know what the numbers necessarily mean or how good the numbers are. But I think that the good news is that, well, let me rephrase that. The good news for me and my family is that it looks like the infection rates are super low among those vaccinated, and hospitalization rates are even super lower, for those of us who are vaccinated. So my entire immediate family being vaccinated, kind of okay. So it's an inconvenience, I guess, to some degree. But I mean, I don't really care about wearing masks that much. My wife goes bananas because I'll just leave the mask on because I don't care. It doesn't bother me. And so yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't care.
So I saw, the Surgeon General said, what was his quote? The misinformation campaign is an insidious threat. And I'm glad that the Surgeon General is weighing in on saying that, but that jackapple has been there since the last guy was there. Yeah. And when the misinformation started, and he could have spoken up any time over the last year. It's like it's gotten out of hand now. It's completely out of hand, and the social media companies, I think, have an obligation to like work on their algorithm to keep from propagating this misinformation. But when somebody like that dude who had every ability to speak up, he didn't want to get fired 6 months ago, or actually 9 months ago, a year ago.
Yeah. Let's just say. And this isn't, I had this conversation with my son, including Fauci, who a lot of people seem to hail as some kind of a hero. There was a lot of screw ups by the, CDC and other. Eventually, they kind of came to a direction where they should have gone to some degree. But I mean, certainly, who knows how many, just from the initial announcement that masks aren't going to help you by the CDC, how much of an impact did that have? I mean, who knows?
And I toggle between we didn't have PPEs at the time. We didn't have enough PPEs at the time. So were they trying to save PPPs from all that stuff? Or and at the same time, what we didn't know, we didn't know. I mean, it was something that it took a while to. Yeah. If information changes, then that's something different than, if you don't know about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot, but the CDC, it became a sham. It lost so much respect because they would put out a statement on Monday morning saying X, Y, and Z. You turn on the TV in the afternoon and you hear, oh, the White House is upset with the statement. Tuesday morning, the CDC would reissue the statement and dial back some stuff. So, all these people could have stood up and said something, and now, now that the variant is here, but what's crazy is when assholes are like, it's fake. So, they used to say they were trying to make the old guy look bad, and now people are saying they're trying to make the new guy look bad by not getting vaccine and applauding at CPAC that they missed the vaccination goal. Yes. So Australia is apparently in on the plot because now, just for show, they're shutting down. You know what I mean? All these places around the world. We're going to get to the Olympics later, and you can talk about that, but the COVID there.
Oof, oof,
But as far as LA,
oof.
yeah, masks go back on. Yesterday, Sunday night, is it Saturday night?
Saturday night.
So come Sunday.
Saturday night at 11:59 p.m. is what they're saying.
Well, we will see how that goes. Biff, weird topic or sad topic to talk about. Since we've last talked, and I kept writing this down every time I saw a different news story. And your second homeland of Canada, the absolute rash of these indigenous children's mass graves, and it's not in one place; it's nationwide.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and oh my God, there's just so much, right? There's the mass graves on its own is its own horror, right? And then the fact that these were run by the Catholic Church it's another set of stuff. And then the third thing being part of this essentially this program to essentially convert these kids. I mean, we criticize the Chinese for trying to do this with with their with the Uyghurs and whatever else, right? They have these conditioning programs, right? But essentially, yeah, kind of stuff that has happened to the rest of the world also, and kind of in relatively recent history. So yeah,
That's a scary. Like, we saw this movie, Rabbit Proof Fence. It was a great movie,
Yeah.
and it took place in Australia in the late teens, early 20s.
right,
And I forget, it was a eugenics program they had,
right,
where they were going in and just stealing indigenous children. And basically, if they had light enough, dark skin, they could get an education enough to like the third grade, so they could, basically run errands. If their skin was too dark, they would either keep them with their families or basically make them, their dishwasher, slaves.
Right.
Essentially, they would just randomly go in and just steal children. And there's an incredible story about this one little girl who, there's a rabbit-proof fence that goes all over Australia at the time. That she followed the rabbit-proof fence all the way home. And it was like something 1,400, 1,600 miles. A 6-year-old girl carries her 2-year-old sister all the way home type thing, only to be captured again. And they have this whole chart that, okay, if the light-skinned woman married a white, they made it with a white person, that baby would still be, brown to a certain extent, but it would, and they had a whole chart and system to how many generations it would take to, convert them. And you're like, wait a minute, that was just 100 years ago, and this thing in Canada, some of these graves are only like 60 years old.
Right. It's horrid. And this comes in the backdrop of a lot of other activities. I mean, there are these land back movements by the First Nations in regards to essentially actually territorial rights. There's been some ugly conflicts, certainly in the maritime provinces regarding rights of First Nation peoples, and they have these. So they're given these certain rights that are not given to the rest of the country. Some of them are stuff that people don't care about. Like one of the things that I don't think people know about is, I believe, like say, First Nation peoples in Western Canada are allowed to hunt whales because it's deemed this, traditional way of life kind of a thing, right? And they hunt whales as kind of sustenance, right? Not for commerce. So,
right.
They have a kind of an exemption to do that. And they could also hunt for other marine wildlife where they are protected for other people. And similarly, I think on the eastern side, they have rights to do these, to essentially trap lobsters, even if the lobsters, if it's outside of lobster season for the rest of the people. And that has led to these conflicts that involve these First Nations peoples, boats being victimized by arson and stuff like that. And that's been going on for the last couple of years now. So there's a lot of this happening. So there's a certain kind of a BLM-ish reckoning that they're dealing with the First Nations. And so when this comes in the backdrop of that, it's kind of like, with all this BLM stuff happening, imagine if we found these mass graves of slave children, right? Or not even, maybe not even slave children, but
Yeah.
these black children
Right.
from some whatever, that's kind of what we're maybe in a way talking about. Obviously not apples to apples, right? But still, it's just the fact that we have this thing going on at the same time. It's just so it is a kind of it seems like it's a point of reckoning. So I'm following it, but obviously I don't live there, and I'm not really that as close to it, but I am kind of following it along.
Like I said, I mean, it's awful every way, but the fact how recent it is, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Almost in our lifetime,
I mean, like all these, KKK lynching is, hey, in our lifetime. So
right. But at least we're doing something about it in this country. We're making a huge effort to not be able to teach it.
Well, let's just say there are people who are trying to do
no, there are people out there actively trying to keep us from learning about it. So,
right.
It's like, because we don't want the rich white kids to feel bad that everything that we've ever done hasn't been great. So let's not teach any. But I will say, it's finally nice to see somebody like Lindsey Graham, get his hands dirty and actually roll up his sleeves and he has sent so many other people's children to wars. Finally, this is a war he's willing to fight on.
He's a man for the people, and this is really representing his people. I think, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Do you why don't you espouse about it a little?
Well, obviously there a huge uproar over some so Chick-fil-A, I guess, was planning or was working with I believe it's with Notre Dame University, right? To open up Chick-fil-A. And there was essentially an open letter protesting that move based on some of Chick-fil-A's corporate decisions and actions, especially in regards to funding anti-LGBTQ activities, and also for their openly anti-LGBTQ stance. And so obviously this is like, come on, this level of political correctness is just wrong, according to Mr. Graham. So that's the war.
He's senator from South Carolina is tweeting up the storm saying, like, I forget, he basically said, this is a hill I'm willing to die on.
It's kind but so I expect in a couple of years we're going to see the Lindsey Graham's war. Probably not as good as Charlie Wilson's war, but
probably not as good.
I'll see a movie version of this. But my understanding is that Notre Dame is going to go ahead and open that Chick-fil-A. So
a bunch of Catholics will go fuck them too. So Biff, now right on to the Olympics, baby. Right in there. How excited are you?
Also, okay, to start with, I kind of don't give a crap that much about the Summer Olympics in general, because you know what? There's no hockey. But regardless, kind of an important Olympics, but so it's kind of great timing that Tokyo had just entered a new emergency order this past week, I believe it started. So people in the city are limited in terms of there's all these rules about when restaurants have to close and they can't serve alcohol and blah blah blah. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on, and Olympics is going to start when? Was it next week? What?
So it was my understanding that there was going to be no tourism, so like even the family members, like the moms and dads, couldn't come see their kids compete in the Olympics, and it was just going to be Japanese.
That's not important, is it?
Just Japanese or just Tokyo residents were the only ones who were going to be allowed. But now it's like, nope, no spectators.
So I mean, bottom line is, though, it's a combination of things, right? Because there was no way they're going to delay another Olympics, because then, hey, guess what? Then we're back onto the cycle of, hey, Winter Olympics and Summer Olympics happening in the same year, right? So they don't want to go back to that. Plus, there's all these whatever, right? There's these expected broadcast revenue and everything else that's, I'm sure, come into play, but that is kind of converging with the fact that the Japanese government basically had a failure in executing their, and kind of anti-COVID response, for lack of better description. So real, very poor logistical planning and stuff like that. So I think in many ways, if they could have come close to having, say, the vaccination levels, or not vaccination levels, but essentially the vaccination delivery that US had by this point, then I think that they probably could have had it, because they're a lot more compliant about vaccinations anyway. The people are, so they're willing to to get it in a much larger percentage than, say, the US would be. It's just that the government failed to build the infrastructure to support it. So
That's awful. That's awful.
yeah, plus the vaccine contracting, the purchase contracting. Oh, and plus their internal, kind of their equivalent of FDA being a little slow in approving some of those vaccines. So yeah, overall, failure. But who knew this would who knew that Olympics was going to be this year? Well, okay, so they knew for a year that it's going to be this year because it was supposed to be last year. But yeah, so that's why they get ragged on for very good reasons.
So, it's funny. I was talking to our good friend Joe last week. Oh, that's the other thing. Little guys were doing a piano lesson, on Zoom with their teacher like last week, and one of the keys stopped working. It happens. Right. So I said I asked the wife, it's like, hey, can you jump on like Facebook Marketplace? I'll pick up another, Yamaha keyboard for $100 this week. Right away, she hands me the phone, and there's like a dozen, from 50 to 100 that are exactly the same one. And I'm scrolling through trying to find the closest one. Dude, then I see this organ, this absolute late 60s, 100 switches, huge thing, and it's free. And I'm like, okay.
Nice.
I'm at least going to go drive and check this thing out. People had it in their driveway. They brought it outside like before, and it took 3 people to get it out there, and it worked. I brought my little guy, and it worked. I didn't know how big it was. It's like, okay, I had to borrow my parents' van to get it. Took 3 people to get it in the house. Took me and my 2 boys. Getting it out, because of the way gravity works, was a lot easier than getting it in.
Wait, so wait, when you say get it actually fit in your Hyundai?
No, I had to run to my mom's house and borrow her.
Okay.
Basically, she has a huge van.
She has a truck.
Yeah.
Oh, a van. Okay, cool. So, and then, cool.
So then I'm like, fuck, how am I going to get it in? And I'm like, look, it's going to cost like $200-300.
That's what she said. Okay.
Thank you very much. Take a skate around. $200-300. People want it to take it from the back of my mom's van, the 20 yards into our house, and I'm like, yeah, and then which was fine because it was free. So I'm like, yeah, I don't mind that. But they're like, yeah, we can be there next Wednesday, and I'm like, I gotta get this van. So I got it out of the van, and I'm like, okay, I got the furniture dollies. I got on the steps. There's 4 steps into our front door. And I'm like, I'm going to see if I can do it. The thing weighs well over 300 pounds. But I could lift it up onto 1 step, put a cinder block under it. And with my little guys, it's like, okay, you don't have to do anything. Gravity's doing everything. Just both of you stand on this side and hold it like this. So when I lift it, it doesn't sway. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it took about 15 minutes. I was legitimately proud of how focused they were, because it goes sideways. But yeah, I'll post a clip of it. It works. It's great, and it's actually reinvigorated them wanting to just sit down and play because of all. And the funny thing is, all these $100 Yamaha keyboards all have those same sounds programmed in there.
Sure, but it's different though.
But it's so different. It doesn't.
The way it resonates is completely different. Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that they figured out there's like 8 pedals on the ground that they can essentially just play just with their feet. So that was the big highlight. But so Joe's son wanted to see it. He came over. I yapped with Joe, and I'm like, hey, dude, it's been a while. why don't just for fun, you do a couple self-indulgent theaters? And he's like, and he wasn't being, he was being Joe. He's being really, he's like, seriously? Why don't you? You're funny. Why don't you do it? I'm like, I can't do voices. Like they all sound the same.
Right.
So I don't have any new stuff with that, but I also don't have anything in video games, which brings us.
He can do Vincent Price, right?
Oh, he can definitely do Vincent Price. So
I mean, there's got to be a Vincent Price thing that they can do with the organ, right? With all that, whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Now it's my life's mission. My first life's mission is to find out what that scheduling conflict was for $28 million.
$28 million.
That's one. And then my second one will be to have Joe and his son do some kind of Paul Lynn, Vincent Price thing with the organ.
Yeah, there's got to be. Yeah. Wait, Paulin had that Halloween special?
Dude, we will. I did a special, right. Joe. I'm sure we'll come on and do.
Right? That's what that was, right?
Dude, yeah. It was so great. It was so great, and it didn't air for 40 years. They have a restore copy on YouTube. It was Kiss's first appearance on TV, and they did 4 songs. Yeah. But we'll go down that rabbit hole when it gets there. You watching anything?
I am watching. I'm watching stupid things on YouTube, but let me tell you, I am watching 2 things on YouTube. One is this guy who Japan has this concept of the food researcher, I guess that's kind of how it translates. But these are people whose job it is to essentially either find new ways to prepare things or just develop recipes and stuff like that. Right. So these are your kind of like your Rachel Rays, right? Okay. And so a bunch of them now in this, in the world that we live in, have these YouTube channels. And this guy has it for whatever reason, he came on my feed and I said, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'll check him out. So he has this basically shtick where he does a recipe, and the recipe certainly has he'll do something, but he'll kind of associate that recipe with like a concept. Like he's talking about, let's say, like there's a cold dish. So he'll say something like, well, so when we're preparing a cold dish like this, what is the key thing that we have to remember when we're doing this? So we kind of have to feel the dish. We have to be like the dish. So we really have to, create, get ourselves into that cold mode. And what's the best way to do it? And it's always the same thing. He basically starts with that kind of a spiel as an excuse to bring out alcohol, and he kind of starts getting drunk before he starts preparing the meal. And it's like the same thing every freaking time. But the guy is actually pretty good. And because there was a particular dish that is a pain to make, and he says, this is a shortcut way to do it. Try it. And it actually was pretty good. And I'd say, so this guy's actually pretty legit. So now I've actually tried a few of his techniques, maybe not copying completely. And he's actually pretty useful, and he's kind of entertaining. So I'm watching that dude.
Dude, that's awesome.
And then there's the second one where there's this pretty young lady, probably like, 30-ish. And she works at her family's fish business. So they're a fishmonger, and they also have a few restaurants. So they'll bring in, they'll buy the fish wholesale, and then they'll kind of route some of the stuff over to their restaurant, and they'll route some of the stuff over to their fish shop and blah blah blah. So, but because she works for that, for the as a fishmonger, she actually starts off by kind of showing the actual fish, and she cleans it, and she goes through the techniques of cleaning it and filleting it, or however way they're going to prepare it. And so it kind of combines the end-to-end process for a fish, right? Here's the whole fish, here's the end product, kind of a thing. So I like that end-to-end stuff, including the fact that I kind of want to see, a lot of the times I want to get the fish, and a lot of I don't necessarily want to get, a lot of the fish that I want to get are available, say, only in Asian markets where they'll cut the head off for you and they'll gut it for you, but they're not going to fillet it for you and stuff like that. So I kind of like to see what they do. So I've gotten some cool ideas from them also. And so those are the 2 things that I'm watching, aside from my, usual Japanese all-girl rock band stuff. Yes, that's where I'm at right now. But I'm going to try to get to actual real stuff.
No. Speaking of girl rock bands, my wife has fallen in love with the Linda Lindas.
Oh yeah. That's they're local to here,
They're
right? And they
local.
did, yeah,
She,
yeah,
she she showed me something. I forget they had a song a little while
yeah,
ago that she saw that
yep,
she loved that she played, and then they've popped
yeah.
up in like two teen movies recently that she's watched on Netflix. Like,
Right, yeah,
and they're
yeah,
great. They're great.
yeah.
No,
They're they had the Angry Boy song, right?
yeah,
They're I can't remember the name of the song, but there was something about is they're singing to a boy basically about how they're I was shocked the boy's a jerk, right? So
but yeah, it was like,
yeah,
uh, but they're great, and like all the Japanese bands that you send my way, like these really cute girls in cute outfits who just shred. You know what I
yeah.
mean? The drummer's just awesome. I mean, it's
It's
great.
actually kind of it is kind of weird that like they're just so like technically proficient. It's like wow. I mean, they're just I mean they just happen to be a very there's a few that where they're super technically proficient, but they're like the way like okay, but they're the entire band's dressed out in princess outfits, right? It's like okay, cool.
Got it. I watched Loki, of course. It's
That's
la- okay.
yeah, I was gonna binge it. I mean, I do want to watch it, but I was gonna binge. Oh, but I did finish the Mandalorian, by the way.
Oh, both seasons.
Finally, yeah, both seasons.
Okay.
Fantastic.
That scene when Luke shows up.
Yeah,
And they're like,
I mean, and I knew that this was coming, right? I didn't
oh,
know how it was coming.
yeah.
Right? Obviously, I've been, it's been so long that I knew that it was coming, but still great. Still really great.
When you see at the end of Rogue One that last scene where Darth Vader is just mowing through Princess Leia's ship, the first scene of Star Wars: A New Hope is the last scene, but from the other point of view,
Right.
From that, and that was the first time you saw what a badass Vader was. Well, this is the first time that you saw Luke the Jedi. Right, like young Luke from Jedi, and he just mows down those tin cans
right.
And just every way possible that he could, between force pushing, force pulling, between just holding the guy up and crushing him with his hand, force crushing him.
Right.
That whole thing. But when I saw, because I didn't know he was going to be on it, was they kept that secret pretty great. And then when they're having that scene. And you see that one X-wing, management and I were like, oh my God. And they're like, oh, it's one X-wing. Great, we're saved, sarcastically. But then the look on Moff Gideon's face when he realized it was a Jedi, a real Jedi. He's like, yeah, this Mandalorian can kick ass, and these warriors from Mandalore, are pretty great, but yeah, you guys are about to see something that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, and so obviously, I think Mandalorian is generally highly regarded, as is Rogue One. But I think there's a lot about the and I get a lot of the arguments about the sequels, right? I mean, I get some of the purists argument about it, but I think in general, I think the one thing I will say is that when they did made those movies, I do definitely believe that the people who are whether it be Josh Abrams or I can't remember the other guy's name, but I think that there was a certain care that they did have. They may have had some missteps, and certainly that last one was kind of tough right.
I loved them, and look, like then again, like you just said, the helicopters in Pacific Rim, whatever you want to say, it's like, and I've said that to my boys. It's like, why do people hate things? I'm like, everybody hates everything. I mean, honestly, if if the Mona Lisa was painted and put in a museum today, it'd be shredded by critics. But I loved it. I'm glad you caught up with that. Loki, it's funny because management and I were okay. As soon as she gets home from work Wednesday night, we were watching it because it drops, at like 3 a.m. our time.
Yeah.
And then she would always inevitably get upset. It's like, oh, I saw a spoiler today. I'm so upset. I'm like, I have it because I stayed off social media. And so then we went to bed really early Tuesday with the idea okay, we're going to get up early. We're going to get up at 6:30 and watch it before she goes to work. So she doesn't have to worry about
Right.
spoilers. I cue it up. She's in the bathroom and she's like, damn it. I'm like, what? She goes, well, I just saw a spoiler. I'm like, why would you be on your phone? I'm like, this is a you thing. I know my sympathies out the window. Like, I want to be sympathetic, but we had a plan in place. Guess what? My phone's still over there on the charger. No, I looked up, I've gotten the habit of leaving the phone in the other room to charge at night. So when I get up to go to the bathroom, I don't look at it and waste time and fall down. Get up, go to the bathroom, go back. My little guy's neurologist called it like sleep hygiene. You have to have good sleep hygiene. And so I'm like, I'm going to leave it in the other room. I'll get up and see, okay, did I go to bed early and miss a call that I, should have, or a voicemail, or is there an email that I should be aware of? I looked at the phone, there's nothing. I put it down. I didn't, the boot up screen will have text messages and stuff like that. So, but I did. I love Loki. I really did. It's a great watch. Honestly, Emmys don't mean shit really, but the fact that all these Marvel movies, all these Marvel shows have gotten so many, WandaVision was great, loved it, which had nothing to do and was completely different than Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was great, and I loved it. That completely has nothing to do. But I will tell you this last thing of Loki, I'm glad I got up, you know what I mean? And I didn't want to see anything. So I watched that. We're watching Cobra Kai. By the time we talk next, I don't know if Apple TV is releasing everything at once. I kind of hope they're not. But we binge watched Ted Lasso in 2 days. I kind of don't want to binge watch it, because I enjoy it. I really enjoy Ted. So I'm looking. But the other thing, and I didn't put it on the rundown, are you on board with Kevin can go fuck himself?
I do not know. You told us about it, but I do not know what that is.
Dude, it is so there's 5 episodes out. Okay. And basically it's a sitcom.
And on which platform?
It's on AMC, and then the next day it airs on Amazon.
Okay.
So I'm not, so basically it's 2 completely different shows, stylistically, tonally, feel to it. It's a typical 4-camera, sitcom that we all know. Here's the living room. Okay. Here's the attractive wife.
Oh, okay.
Married to the fat guy who is an idiot who in real life would never be able to marry a woman as smart and as pretty as her.
Sure, right.
The wacky next door neighbor who idolizes, Fred, Barney to the Fred, and his dad. And it's about this woman. Right. His name is Kevin, but it's about his wife. And it's the laugh track. It's the jokes you can see coming. And half the show is that. Half the show is a legit, decent laugh track, run-of-the-mill sitcom. But every time she leaves the room, it goes to a one-camera shoot. It's all shot dark. It becomes gritty. It's her life, which is struggling outside of dealing with this idiot in the town of Worcester. Dude, it's like all the first episode.
Oh, wait, so let's jump to Worcester. Let's finish it because I do want to talk about Worcester after we're done with that. But
yeah, but it's funny because it takes place in Worcester, where I work on a regular basis and I have some dealings. But they nailed the whole Worcester thing. They nailed he's obviously a Boston sports fan. I mean that whole thing plays into it. Like, but when she leaves the house and shuts the door behind her, now it's shot completely different. Like and when she talks to people, like, dude, I like with everything I try to explain, I'm doing a piss poor job. And jarring at first, the way it toggles back and forth.
Right.
She'll go to the kitchen to get something, and for the 30 seconds she's in there and comes back, it's a drama. It's shot drama. It's shot dark.
Interesting.
The sitcom, it's very well lit. It's a 4-camera shoot. It's, dude, it's great. It's fucking awesome. But I'm watching. So between Ted Lasso, which I'm excited about, Cobra Kai, which by the time we will talk next, I'm pretty sure we'll be through season 3, and I'll talk to you about it. And season 2, put a pin in this. Daniel LaRusso He has a car dealership, and his commercials have like Japanese, music, and he's wearing his gi. He actually his big passion is pruning bonsai trees, and he starts getting slammed for cultural, appreciation.
Appropriation.
And the thing is, like, this is a guy who his father figure, who he went to Okinawa with a couple times, and two, and he studied the culture and the language. He worshiped, Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi became his father, his sensei, his guide through life, helped him start his car dealership. So he's not like, oh, I'm going to, like Led Zeppelin, I'm going to steal these blues guys' music.
Right.
He's paying homage to it. So, so it's fun, the dialogue that creates inside. Yeah. And the other thing I just watched this week, I heard an old interview with Regina King on NPR a couple years ago that aired just before Watchmen started. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going back and I'm going to rewatch Watchmen. And I did this week. Dude, I don't know if you watched it, but she's top 5 favorite actors of mine. She is just, everything she's done is awesome. Right. But she is particularly great. And this Watchmen series, there's 8 episodes. It's so good. It's so good. I could not recommend it more. But but that's me. You got anything we should be watching other than Japanese girls videos? I shouldn't say it like that. These hard rocking.
Do whatever you. I don't care. What
baby metal.
I make fun of what you watch. So.
No, I'm not making fun of it. Every time you give me a clip, I'm like.
But I make fun of what you watch.
I would 100% go to any one of those shows with you.
Actually, Baby Metal is a fun show. Well, it used to be a fun show. It's a little bit different now, but for the first few years, I've been to 2 of their shows, and it was a lot of fun. But anyway, no. So I just want to go back to Worcester for just a sec.
Yeah,
but did you see the Worcester Sox game event news?
No.
That was on. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Apparently, people do the proposal thing or game stuff. So apparently, a guy arranged that, and there was a no.
Oh,
and it was.
Oh,
there was a no, and it happened at a Worcester Sox game. So there you go.
There was a famous one at a basketball game a few years ago.
Yeah,
like maybe it's like 10, 12 years ago now.
Okay.
But dude,
brutal, right?
Dude.
Brutal. Yeah.
Like I even just, oh my God, my heart sinks for the guy, and then it sinks for the guy. But that poor woman to be put on that stage,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Obviously, he didn't have the quite, he wasn't reading the room properly, and so there you go,
dude. That's awful.
Yeah. Well, my favorite tweet about it though was, so I think the team announced, and today's game's attendance was 6,704, and then somebody replied, well, it was 6,703 after the proposal.
Oh,
it's like,
oh, dude,
nice
way to bring a room down.
Nice.
So is one of your parenting tips to your son, make sure if you're going to propose in a big public setting that you know what the heck you're doing? Is that one of the parenting tips?
I don't think I think that the proposal can be a surprise, but I think that you should have that talk to some degree where you kind of have that understanding with the other side to say, hey, I think we're kind of, moving this along to a direction that is beyond just us going out, right? I think that you probably want to have that discussion to some degree.
Oh, that hurts.
And then after that, you kind of, pick a time or whatever, plan that as its own event. And if you want to make it a big deal and make it a surprise, cool. But I still think that even though it's fun to kind of watch and whatever, I would say that venue is never the right way to do it. I mean, sure, you both may be huge, whatever sport fans you are, but I think to some degree, it's okay to have a certain level of privacy and have it be your moment, kind of a thing, right?
It's I mean, I'm flabbergasted on behalf of both of them because it's a humiliating thing for her
It's
too to be
horrible.
put in
It's
that
horrible.
spot.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
bad all around, right?
can we just take no more of that shit? No, no, sorry,
It's just generally a bad idea.
So my parenting tip is you're old enough, time to fly away. My oldest guy's 13 and coming to visit you guys by himself. It's his first. I mean, he's flown truly back and forth. He's flown to the Middle East a dozen times on these 16, sometimes 20-hour flights, these 26-hour flights if there's a 5-hour layover somewhere. But this is the first time he's getting on the plane. And the thing is, we were all gung-ho about it. He was completely excited about it. He's been, vaccinated for a month plus now, like fully vaccinated past the 2-week thing for over a month now. But now that the variants are there, we're like, oh man, does this mean Disney and Universal and all the things he was flying there to see? I don't know how that's going to be like in 2 weeks. He doesn't mind wearing the mask, but I wonder how that's all going to be.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about it. I would think that LA County doesn't have the appetite to go into an actual
Another.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I just saw that like Disney moved 3,000 corporate jobs from Anaheim to Florida. And I don't know how much of that is, hey, the guy over there doesn't care if there's another wave of this, we better, start going to a state where, that mass exodus from California is continuing on a corporate level. But so my parenting tip is like, yeah, you're old enough, go see shit. Here's your bag, get on the plane, go. Well, if it's safe, but it's kind of flying on his own. I'm being selfish. If he was 1 month older, it'd be $300 less, but he has to do that unaccompanied minor thing. But the cutoff age is like 14. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, my son had to do the unaccompanied minor thing because there was one time, well, only for one part of the trip. There was this trip that I took with him where I spent a first part of this Thursday to Sunday in the Denver area, but then on Sunday I was going to go straight to my client site, and I was sending my son back to LA where my wife was going to pick him up, but I didn't have to pay anything because I bought his ticket on miles. And to top it all off, he was that privileged jerk sitting in first class,
right?
So I took him to the gate, right? And I kind of introduced him to the gate agent and say, hey, this is my son. He's going to be on this flight. He's the unaccompanied minor. Here's the stuff. The wife's on the other side. And he says, great. Have a nice time. And so, yeah. And so, of course, he gets to go in first anyway because he was in first class. But then he got to go in first because he was the unaccompanied minor. And there you go.
Yeah, that I saw, like, because we're doing JetBlue, it's like, oh, I can upgrade and he can get the early boarding and pick the seat. I'm like, yeah, that's happening anyway. So at least I saved that amount. So Biff, it was great catching up. I had a very enjoyable break. I don't know how our poor listener like suffered through out hearing me like really poorly describe things and say the word like 561 times, but
I love the fact that you said cultural appreciation,
cultural
appropriation, because man, it's kind of like the opposite. But okay,
it is. Well, he was showing appreciation.
Yeah,
but I do. Thank you for pointing out. Between my dyslexia and my speech impediment, which I can really work on, but there are just some words I have to focus on. I can say, hey, give me a minute, buddy. I'll be there to help you with your algebra homework if I stop and really take my time and enunciate. But if I don't, it comes out, hey, you fucked up your mother's vagina when you fell out of there and you killed her sex drive, you bastard.
But it'd be hilarious if, you had all of those, speech challenges, but yet somehow you spoke fluent Klingon or something.
Dude, that would be something I would figure out. Anyways, Biff, this was great, and I will talk to you in a couple weeks.
Well, I think it's important that you don't forget.
Your scars show the most. You may have too deep. It taught me how to hurt. They taught me how to love. It taught me something worse. It taught